Be'ezras Hashem, with Hashem's help, we're beginning a new set of laws. Hilchos Bikkurim im sha'ar matnes kohuna shebagvulin. The laws of the first fruits, together with the rest of the gifts that go to the Kohanim in Eretz Yisrael. And what tremendous divine providence, Hashgacha Pratit, Shavuot, which is tonight, is called Yom HaBikkurim. One of the names of Shavuos is the holiday of the first fruits. So to be learning about the first fruits on Erev Shavuot, and throughout the 2 days of Shavuos and the days following, is a very big kiss from Hashem that we're studying this stuff exactly today. Why does Bikkurim come after the last set of laws? The last set of laws was Meiser Sheni. Many of the same laws that apply there apply to Bikkurim. You have to bring it to Yerushalayim. You cannot eat it if you're in a deep state of mourning, and other things as well. More Kabbalistically speaking, or more spiritually speaking, the Rabbi once explained that what we're talking about at the end of the last set of laws, the fourth year produce, represents when a person climbs in the service of God level to level. Bikkurim is the next level. It's when you transcend Hishtalshalut, when you transcend the normal order of things. Or, said in other words, the way we're always looking forward to Mashiach coming, during Galut, during exile, we serve Hashem in an orderly fashion. Then we jump to the Geula, to the future redemption where everything's going to change. And that's what Bikkurim represents. Jewish people are called Bikkurim. We're called Hashem's first fruit for that exact reason. We're the ultimate reason, the purpose of creation. The world was created for the Torah and for the Jewish people. Hashem's Bikkurim. So this is the message of learning about Bikkurim. So as the Rambam always does, he gives us the list of which mitzvahs we're going to discuss in these laws. Yesh bichlala tesha mitzvahs. There are 9 mitzvahs included in this set of laws. Shmeina mitzvahs aseh ve'achas mitzvahs leis aseh. 8 positive mitzvahs, 1 negative mitzvah, v'zehu pratan, and these are their details. Aleph, lahafrish bikurim, u'lahaloisan b'mikdash. Number 1, there's an obligation to separate bikurim, which will define what that is, and bring it to the holy temple. Beis, shelo yechal ha'kohen bikurim chutz l'Yerushalayim. The Kohen who receives the bikurim is not allowed to eat them outside of Jerusalem. Gimel likres aleihen. You have to recite a declaration over them, also very similar to Meiser Sheni. Yesterday we saw that every couple of years you have to say a declaration that you gave all the Meisers. Same thing with Bikurim, is a declaration for that. Dalid, now we move on to other gifts of the Kohanim. Lahafrish challah lakayin. Every time you make a dough, if it's big enough, it meets the requirements, you must take a piece of the dough as challah for the Kohen. Hey, lases lakayin zroya l'chayayin v'keva. Every time you slaughter an animal, not even a sacrifice, a regular animal, you're supposed to give to the Kohen. Zroya is the front leg. L'chayayim are the cheeks. Keva is one of the 4 stomachs, called the Abba Mesam, or the maw. Vav, liten le'reishis hageis. To give him the first of your shearings. You shear your sheep for some wool, give the Kohen the first pieces of the wool. Zayin, lifdois b'choir haben, v'litein pidyoine la'koyen. If you have a firstborn son, and he meets the requirements, you have to redeem the firstborn son, and give the redemption money to the Kohen. So 2 steps. First, you're redeeming him, really from Hashem, so to speak, and you give the money to the Kohen. Ches, lifdois peter chamor, v'litein pidyoine la'koyen. Same thing if you have a firstborn donkey. You must redeem it, pay a little bit, in the case, it's not really pay money, it's supposed to put a sheep in exchange, peter chamor tifdev v'seh, and you give the redemption to the Kohen. And tes, laref peter chamor, im le'ratza lifdois. So if you don't want to redeem it, the other mitzvah is you must knock off its head from the back, chop off its head from the back. Ubir mitzvahs elu b'prakim. The explanation of these mitzvahs is coming in the following 12 chapters, be'ezras Hashem. Perek Risha in chapter 1 says the Rambam halacha aleph. Esrim ve'arba matonos nitnu la'kohanim. There are 24 gifts that were given to the Kohanim. V'chulan mifurashin b'Torah. They're all clear in the Torah. It's quite unusual because sometimes, in the Torah you have very few lines and we have a whole bunch of things that we learn in the Talmud from it. Here, it's clear. All 24 are explicit in the Torah. V'al kulan nichris abris la'aron. Over all 24 of them, Hashem made a treaty, a covenant with Aaron HaKohen. V'chol kohen she'enei moide b'hen. Any Kohen who doesn't acknowledge his right to these gifts, ein lo chelek b'kohanim, doesn't even have a portion amongst the Kohanim. Ve'ein noisnim le'matana mehem. We don't give him a gift of these gifts. Like if you don't want your money, you're not going to get it. You don't acknowledge that Hashem gave you these gifts, you're not going to get it. Halacha beis v'chola oichel matana sheyesh bo kedusha. Any Kohen who eats one of the gifts that has holiness, because we'll soon see the list of the 24, some of them are holy, some of them are not. If you're eating one with holiness, mevarech, you have to make a bracha. Asher kitshanu b'kedushasei shel Aaron v'tzivanu lechel kach v'kach. Blessed is Hashem that He sanctified us with the holiness of Aaron, and He commanded us to eat such and such. And now, this whole chapter, we're not even going to get into the laws of the gifts. We're just going to get two lists, two ways to list the gifts. The first is the Rambam's original way. The Rambam was a very practical guide to halacha, so he gives us his own simplified division of how to divide the 24 gifts into a couple of groups. Then, at the second half of the chapter, he's going to give us the Chachamim's list, the way they did it in the Talmud, how it says it over there. So it's going to be basically a repeat, twice the same thing, in a bit of a different order. So first the Rambam's list. Shmeina matanis mehem, says the Rambam, 8 of the gifts. Ein oichlim oisan hakoyanim, ela b'mikdash, lifnim mechayim asa azara. They're so holy, the Kohanim can only eat them in the holy temple, inside the Azara. Azara is the front courtyard, right in front of the building of the temple where the Mizbeach was. This is the only place they could eat these gifts. The Chamish Matanais, there are 5 gifts. Ein oichlin oisan ela b'Yerushalayim. There are 5 gifts, we'll soon go through them, that have to be eaten. They're a little bit less holy, not in the Beis HaMikdash, but have to be eaten at least in Yerushalayim, within the walls of the ancient Yerushalayim. There are 5 gifts that, biblically speaking, you only get in Israel, the biblical land of Israel. Even though maybe rabbinically you might get them elsewhere as well, but biblically they're only in Israel. There are 5 gifts that we get everywhere, the whole world, whether in Israel or in the diaspora. There's one gift that goes into its own category, since, as the Radvaz explains, they get it not from any individual person, they get it from the temple. It's the temple's gift to the Kohanim. Therefore, it's a separate category. Okay, now let's go in order and figure each one out. Halacha Dalid Mahin Hashmeina She'eina Echolin Alav HaMikdash. What are the 8 gifts that are only eaten in the Beis HaMikdash? Says the Rambam, Besar HaChatas. First of all, we have the meat of the sin offering. And this includes really 2 subcategories. Echad Chatas Ha'oif ve'echad Chatas HaBehema. Whether it's the bird sin offering or the animal sin offering. Because sometimes you brought a bird or you brought an animal. That all counts for 1. Number 2, Ubesar Ha'asham. Meat of a guilt offering. Separate category. Bein Toli, Bein Vade. Again, it has 2 subcategories because guilt offerings are either brought out of doubt or indefinite sin. But that only counts for 1, so that's 2 in total. Number 3, the Zivchei Shalmei Tzibur. Another Shavuos related topic. On Shavuos, there was the only time that the community brought a peace offering. Usually a peace offering, a shlamim, is brought by only individuals. On Shavuos, there were 2 sheep that were brought as Shalmei Tzibur, peace offerings for the community, and they were given to the Kohanim, only eaten in the Beis HaMikdash. That's number 3. Number 4, U'moisar ha'omer. Any leftover from the barley of the Omer offering. On Pesach, second day of Pesach, they would go, cut some barley, and that was what allowed Jews to benefit from the new grain of the year. Part of it went to the Mizbeach, whatever was left over went to the Kohanim. Number 5, Ushiyare Menaches Yisrael. Leftover flour from a flour offering brought by any Jew. There's a way to bring a flour offering, and when you do so, part of it goes in the Mizbeach, part of it's left over. Leftover goes to the Kohanim, it's so holy, they must eat it in the temple. Number 6, Ushtei Halechem, another Shavuos topic, the 2 breads. Together with those 2 sheep that are the peace offering, they also brought 2 loaves of bread. It was the only time that there was chametz in the holy temple. People don't know, there was lechem hapanim, there was the showbread, which is the next gift, lechem hapanim, right? That went onto the shulchan, onto the table, but it was actually matzah. It wasn't allowed to rise for 18 minutes. The only time they did chametz was on Shavuos, the shtei halechem. The lechem hapanim, the showbread, the loig shemen shel mitzayra, and the small amount of oil that was used by the person who had sarat. We're going to learn about this in the Rambam's 10th book. Part of the purification process from getting leprosy, that lesion on the skin, was that they would bring certain sacrifices, and they would apply the blood to different body parts of the mitzayra, and they would also take oil and apply it to different body parts. Now, whatever oil was left over belonged to the Kohanim, he could use it for his salad. But he had to eat it in the holy temple, in the Azara. Elu einon ne'acholin ella b'mikdash. These are the ones that are eaten only in the holy temple. Okay, that's part 1. Part 2. Halacha hey u'mahin hachamesh she'einon ne'acholin ella b'Yerushalayim. What are the 5 gifts that are only eaten in Jerusalem? So the Rambam begins. Chazav v'shoik shel shlamim. Every time a person brings a peace offering, he has to give a piece of the chest. and the piece of the leg to the Kohanim. That counts as one. The hamura min hatoida, the pieces that's removed from the Thanksgiving offering. If a person was in a dangerous situation, today you say hagoimel by the Torah, but in those days you had to bring a sacrifice, karban toida. And there was breads and wafers and meat. So a piece of each one, some of the breads, some of the wafers, some of the meat, went to the Kohen. The hamura me'el nazir, and the pieces that had to be removed from the ram of the Nazirite. The Nazir, person makes a vow not to shave his head, or not to drink wine. At the end of his term, he had to bring some sacrifices, and also there was breads involved and sacrifices involved, and parts went to the Kohanim. U'bechar behema tahira, firstborn kosher animal. The Bikkurim and the first fruits. So the main topic of these halachas, all these five, elu einan ne'achalin ela b'Yerushalayim, they can only be consumed by the Kohen in Yerushalayim. Halacha vav u'mahein hachamesh sheberetz Yisrael. What are the five that are biblically mandated only in Israel? Hatruma, okay, 2% to the Kohen of grain. Utrumas meiser, the 10% of the 10%, which the Levi gives to the Kohen. The hachala, first piece of the dough. Ushloshtan kodesh, those three are considered holy. They need a blessing, etc., like I said before. Vereishis hagez, the beginning of the shearings of wool. Usdei achuza, and the ancestral field. Remember from the end of the last book of the Rambam, if somebody has a field that's been in his inheritance in his family, and he wants to sanctify it, consecrate it to the holy temple, then by Yovel, it goes to the Kohanim. Ushnei and Chulin, those last two are not considered holy. Elu einon zeichin bahen min ha'Torah ela b'Eretz Yisrael. These are the ones that the Kohanim only get, they only have a right to biblically in Israel. The ein oichlin trumais v'chalais shel Eretz Yisrael ela b'Eretz Yisrael. And the truma and chala that came from Israel can only be eaten in Israel. Halacha zayin u'mahin hachamesh shezeichin bahen ha'kohanim b'chol makom. What are the last five that the Kohanim get everywhere, all around the world? Hamatonos, the gifts. That's referring to the gifts from any animal that you slaughter. You must give the Kohen, like I said before, the cheekbones, the foreleg, and one of the stomachs. Upidyon aben, redemption of the firstborn. Upeter chamer, and the firstborn donkey. Notice that Rambam doesn't write upidyon peter chamer. He writes peter chamer because ideally, the donkey itself goes to the Kohen. You can just redeem it and give the redemption to the Kohen. The gezel hager, and things belonging to a convert who died without any relatives. It's the only possibility for a Jew to have no relatives. Yes. Huh? Well, lama gezel, because really, once a ger dies with no relatives, anybody can come and steal it. If you think about it, nobody owns it, right? But the Torah says that it goes to the Kohanim. Yeah. The hacharamim and other consecrations. We had at the end of the last book, cherem. If somebody says, I want to consecrate my field to Hashem, then it goes to the Kohanim. All these five, the proceeds of all these five things are completely chulin, no holiness at all. The last gift which the Kohanim get, not from any person in specific, but from the temple treasury, is the skins of the burnt offerings. Every burnt offering went to the Mizbeach, totally burnt to Hashem, but not the skins. The skins went to the Kohanim. Same thing for the skins of any other sacrifice in the category of Kodshe Kodshim, the holiest of the holy. For example, a sin offering is Kodshe Kodshim, a guilt offering is Kodshe Kodshim, as we say every morning in the Izahu Mekayman prayer before Haidu. So that is the 24 gifts. It says the Rambam, the original 8, that they could only be eaten in the Holy Temple, Kulan Kodshe HaKodashim. They're all in the category of the most holy. As will be explained in the proper place, they can only be eaten by male Kohanim. It's those gifts that Torah is talking about when it says, that only the males in the Kohanim should eat it. Referring to those 8 holy of holy gifts. The 5 in Jerusalem, lower level. That's called lighter holinesses. They can be eaten both by males and by females. About those 5 gifts, the Torah says, I gave them to you, to Aaron HaKohen. And to your sons and your daughters with you as an everlasting law. So technically, the daughters can also eat them. Nevertheless, when you give them only to the males. The males can share them with their families, but you give it to the male Kohen. Because ideally, the gifts would go to the Kohanim in the Mishmar. Mishmar means a group or a watch. Kohanim families were divided into 24 groups. Each group would serve for 1 week in the Beis HaMikdash. Whoever was there that week got all the gifts. Since only males serve in the Beis HaMikdash, they ended up getting the gifts. The firstborn animal, it had to be sacrificed first. Its fats and its bloods go on the Mizbeach, and only a man can do that. Therefore, he would get it, but again, he can share it with his family. The hacharamim, the gezel ager, the skins of the sacrifice, the ancestral fields, the consecrated fields, and the property of a ger who dies without any heirs, ein zeichen bahen ella anshe mishmar kameshi yizbar. The people who get them initially are the kohanim serving in the temple that week. The chen pidyon aben lezichre kahuna. Same thing, the redemption of the firstborn goes to male kohanim only. Shekei ne'emar bai, because it says, literally last week's parsha, the nosata hakesef la'aharon ulevanov. You give the money to Aaron and his sons. Upeter chamar lezichre kahuna, and also the firstborn donkey goes to the male kohanim. Shadina b'chayres kulan shava l'scharim v'leil l'nekevas. Even though over there it doesn't say it in the Torah clearly, but all the firstborns are one. Same way firstborn son goes to the kohen males, so too firstborn donkey goes to the kohen males. So in summary, what do we have? You've learned as follows. The only gifts that can be given to females like to males, in other words, you can actually give it to a female. Chamesh matanos are the other 5 we didn't mention. Truma, trumas meiser. Bechala umatnes behema v'reishas hagez. The truma to the kohen, trumas meiser that the Levi gives to the kohen, chalav, the dough, gifts of a regular animal, and the first shearings. Those can go straight to females. Ominayin ato aimer. Shereishas hagez. Is how do we know you can give first shearings straight to the Kohen girls? Shenemar, because it says, look at the verse which describes the obligation. It says, Reishis de gancha tireishcha v'yitzarecha, v'reishis geis tzeincha titen loy. Torah groups together the beginning of your grain, wine, and oil, and the beginning of your shearings you give to the Kohen. Ma reishis dagan nitenas l'nekevas kischarim af reishis hagez. The same way the beginning of the grain is given to females like to males, so that the beginning of the shearings is given to females like to males. So this concludes the Rambam's original list. Now, halacha yud beis says the Rambam, don't think I forgot what it says in the Talmud. Manu chachamim matanes elu al derech acheres. The sages counted the gifts in a different way. V'amru, and they said, because they made different subcategories, they said, esrim ba'arba matnes kahuna nitnu la'aron. There were 24 gifts of the Kohen given to Aaron HaKohen. The Elohen, and they are not 5 categories, but 3. Eser b'mikdash, Arba b'Yerushalayim, ve'eser b'Gvulin. 10 in the Holy Temple, 4 in Jerusalem, and 10 in the rest of the borders of Israel and the world. What are they? Eser b'mikdash, 10 in the Beis HaMikdash. So notice here that Rambam divides the two chatas. Chatas behema ve'chatas ha'oif. Sin offerings of an animal, sin offerings of a bird. Asham v'asham tali. Definite guilt offering and doubtful guilt offering. Those are subcategories that the sages made that the Rambam didn't make. Ziv cheshal metzibur. Now we repeat, right? The 2 sheep of Shavuos, the leg shemen shal metzayda, the oils of the tzaras person, shtei alechem, the 2 breads, lechem aponim, the show bread, shari menaches, leftover flour offerings, and leftover of the omer offering also goes to the kohanim in the Beis HaMikdash. Yudalid, arba b'Yerushalayim, 4 in Jerusalem, habechar, the firstborn, the Bikkurim, first fruits. Umura mitoida ve'el nazir. Here it's put together. The parts that are removed from the toida and the nazir's ram. The oiris kadashim, and the skins of the holy sacrifices. Tesvav eser bagvulin. The 10 that are everywhere else. Oops, that picture is wrong. It shouldn't have the temple. It should have the rest of the world here. But the gifts are right. Truma, 2% of the Kohen. Trumas meiser, from the Levi's gift. The challah, the dough. Reishis hagez, the beginning of the shearings. Vahamatanes, the gifts to the Kohen from every animal. Upidyon aben, firstborn redemption. Upidyon petach hamer, redemption of the firstborn donkey. Sdei charamim, sdei achuza, 2 types of fields, consecrated and ancestral. The gezel ager, and the heirless convert who left some property. Ulefi cheshbon zeh. According to this calculation, chashav kol hamuram mikadashim kali matana achas. The sages considered any piece removed from the lighter level sanctity sacrifices is all considered one gift. The hain they are, chazav v'shay kamuram mikol zevach shlamim, the leg and the breast that are removed from every peace offering. With the bread removed if it was a Thanksgiving offering. With the foreleg removed from the Nazarite's ram with the bread with it. With the breast and the leg of that sacrifice as well. Since they're all anyways peace offerings fundamentally, the sages consider them all to be one gift. But it's basically it's just a different way of looking at the same thing. Everyone agrees of what the gifts are, just how you categorize them. Halacha Tezayin, the Rambam sets the stage for what's coming. Kol hamatanos shehin tluyos bekarbanos. All gifts that are related to sacrifices, tisbayir kol achas va'achas bimkaima behilchos karbanos. We're going to explain each one in its place in the laws of sacrifices. There's 2 books dealing with the temple service and sacrifices. We'll have plenty of time for that. V'chein gezel ager yisbayir behilchos gzela. The laws of an heirless convert. We're going to explain that in the laws of stealing, robbery. We already covered the laws of the ancestral fields and the consecrated fields and the laws of erchin and the endowments. We've already covered the laws of the truma and trumas meiser and the laws of the truma separations. So what's left? In this set of laws, the next coming 11 chapters, I'm going to come to explain all the laws of the gifts that are not dependent on the sacrifices. They are Bikkurim. That's going to be first for the next 3 chapters, the first fruits. The hachala, spreads them on the challah, the dough. The hamatanes, the gifts from the animals. The Hilchos agez, beginning of the shearings. Pidyon aben, firstborn redemption. The peter chamer, firstborn donkey redemption will also cover in these set of laws.